Hello there, and Happy New Year, everybody! And welcome to a special 3-part series on the 110% team, where we'll be talking about every game made thus far by Galactic Cafe. You may remember Galactic Cafe for this game, the Stanley Parable. And some of you may even remember when this game was nothing more than a mod in Half-Life 2. In this very special New Year's special, we'll be taking a look at this game and two others, The Beginner's Guide and their newest installment, which you'll hear the ridiculously long title for in its respective video. But right now, we're going to be taking a look at the Stanley Parable. The Stanley Parable was made in 2014. It was nominated for Game of the Year that year, and it was written by Davey Reedon, one of the people who also made The Beginner's Guide, which we'll talk about later. I'm not going to go through the entirety of this game, because if I went through the entirety of this game, it would take ages to do. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to talk about why I think everyone should play this game. And everyone should play this game for a couple of reasons, not the loading times. The loading times are appalling in any game. Don't buy a game for its loading times. But the reason I think everyone should play this game is for the story, which is coming up in a second.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
So yeah, that's how this game begins, and it is a very meta feeling when you're sitting there and you're all of a sudden in the game when he's talking about you. But a lot of people would call that a boring life, but this does not make for a boring game, ladies and gentlemen. The story is very deep and complex when you get to a couple of the endings of it. But for now, we'll just move along and listen to my second favorite thing about this game, the narrator.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
And perhaps he did. But then you walk down this hallway and you get a choice.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Now, this is where the game comes into its own. You can go through the door on the left and follow the story and the narrator and all that, and you get one ending for that, but you can go through the door on the right and completely disobey the narrator and make up your own story. This is what makes this game awesome, because it gives you the choice of being a rebel or being a follower, and you really get to find yourself, or you get to find out what all of the endings mean. And they probably don't even mean anything, they're just different endings to a game. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to go through the door on the left. And all the numbers passing by, it's neat.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
And the projector works. It's up on the ceiling. You don't make a shadow when you step in front of it, but the slides on this are just ridiculous. You can stick around and watch all of them, or you can move on, like you should. Now, this is just a completely different ending within its own, but I'm going to go through the main part of it.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
You can walk downstairs, and there's another different ending if you walk downstairs, but I'm going to go upstairs. And again, this game gives you so many choices for which you can do, but when you enter the boss's office, it gets just a little bit further into the actual plot of the story. I think. You can't go in the executive bathroom, I forgot about that. Clicking is action, you can't jump. Obviously you can't jump, you can hear the space bar, but you can crouch, but you can't jump. It's kind of weird. You can't open those doors either. But when you enter the actual boss's office, more story is uncovered.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
And of course, the narrator totally gives you away the answer so you can, like... See, that's the wit of this game, another thing I like about it. The wit in this game is completely adoring and utterly funny, and the narrator's voice just makes it 10 times better than what it needs to be. But there is a secret if you punch in 1947 on the keypad. It just opens the door. It's a different key code that lets you do the same thing. Now, this game has lots of different endings, which is another reason you should play this game. Everyone should play this game, but it has a lot of different endings. As far as I can tell, there are about 8 main ones.
Deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
But like I was saying, there are about 8 regular endings, and many secrets and Easter eggs that you can find.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Which you can find, and it makes it, like, so much better. That, I think, is another ending if you walk down that passageway, but again, walking through the main story. There's a switch with a light bulb on it. I wonder what that does. Wait. I can't look at that to see what it says, and I can't jump to see what it says either. Oh, just hit the button.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens.
Oh my goodness.
What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Of course I have the strength to find out. I'm freaking Stanley. Damn it. Oh, more desks. Ooh, button with a camera on it. You can probably tell where this is
Now
going.
monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Oh, there's got to be one for 427. I didn't see it when we walked in. Oh, wait. That should have been the flipping of the numbers. Ah, there they are. 427, right there. Let's stare at that and see where we are exactly. Yep, see? That's the office in the game. That's pretty freaking cool. 259 and 291 appear to have the exact same office with buttons on. They're just mirrored. and the one in the middle is just filing cabinets, which opens up many more questions. 275 is just filing cabinets.
This
and
mind
apparently
control
104 was
facility,
fired.
it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
Now comes one of the worst parts of this entire
But
game.
here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy, or sad, or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
For this part, I'm going to give you, the audience, a choice in this matter. I can either push the button labeled on or push the button labeled off. Pushing the button labeled on will turn on the mind control facility and unlock one ending. Hitting the off button will turn everything in the facility off, open a door, and unlock another one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let you sit here and ponder a choice.